Alright guys, I just want to take a minute here to thank today's video sponsor. It is actually AIVolt. They sent this 4,000 watt generator out for me to try out and use any way I please around the shop or here at the house. Honestly, this thing fired right up the first pull after I got some fuel and oil in it, and I'm pretty impressed. I had the heat gun on here as well as the grinder, and it immediately idled up where it needed to go, and whenever I turned the equipment off, it idled down just as needed. So honestly, it looks like a well-built machine. This was available on Amazon. They ship at Amazon Prime, so it should make it to you pretty quickly. Honestly, it's a pretty compact unit for being 4,000 watts, and I've been wanting a generator here around the house for a while. I don't know if you ever heard of the ice storms around here in Kentucky, but in 2009 we had a huge ice storm, took out tons of power lines for weeks and weeks around here. I was lucky enough to be out of town during that time frame in college, but that's something that I really don't want to have to deal with in the future, and this will help out to keep the heat on in the house if I need to. Run an extension cord in there. It's actually got a 30 watt circuit here for 120, so that's plenty to run a decent amount of equipment in the house or even around the shop here. If I want to take my welder and take it with me and do some welding, this here will allow me to do that. I really suggest you guys check them out. Thank them for sponsoring the channel and allowing me to continue the builds here on the channel. Let's go ahead and jump into the video. Alright guys, welcome to today's video. It's going to be a little bit different today because I'm not going to be doing any work. I just wanted to share with you guys because I was pretty excited about my find. Now, the thumbnail and title probably gave it away, but I actually found my very first car. And what I mean by that is whenever I was 16 years old, I bought a 94 Honda Civic sedan DX. It was a white, like a frost white one. I had that thing from 2002 to like 2010. I did a lot to it. It went through many iterations. I'll show you a few iterations here on the video. They're going to be pictures because I didn't do a lot of video back then, but I took a ton of pictures. So I'm probably going to be flipping through them right now. You can see all the different iterations it went through, from super ricey, working its way through the 2000s, all the way up until I kind of moved on to the JDM look. Now that's kind of how it ended up whenever I sold it, kind of the JDM styling. I've got the OEM front lip, I had the JDM side markers, the Ferio rear door garnishes, and that Ferio spoiler. I was pretty happy with how it looked. I mean, for being on such a budget in college, I spent most of my money on that car throughout the years. And I actually had a old school Greddy turbo kit on there with a D15B single cam VTEC engine swap. I loved how it drove. It had probably about 200 horsepower. I never dynoed it. A buddy of mine actually did a tune on it based on his old identical setup, and it ran flawlessly for like 2 years on the turbo setup at about 11 pounds. It was awesome. It was open downpipe. It was super loud, but I loved driving the car. Now the timing belt ended up breaking the teeth on it, so it slipped time. I put the new timing belt on it back in 2010 or 2009, I think it was. Everything was fine and dandy for months and months, and then eventually the crank bolt itself backed out just a little bit and caused the crank pulley to start wobbling, and it sheared off the keyway on the crank itself. So I've got a picture here. I'm going to show you what I was talking about. And whenever that happened, I was at a point in my life where I had gotten a better job, I had a little bit extra money, and I decided, hey, it's time to get rid of this car. I ended up selling that thing for like 3,500 bucks as it sat. The engine was still good, but the crank had some damage, so I think maybe it could have been repaired if you pulled the crank out and replaced it, but I was at a point where I was not going to do that myself. So I ended up buying my Subaru STI, and I've still got that car from 2010 as well. But back to the Civic, I actually was scrolling on Facebook Marketplace and ran across a picture of a white sedan, and it kind of reminded me of my old one, so I clicked on it. And what I found was a lot of similarities between that car and my first car, and it only took maybe 30 seconds before I had decided that actually is my car. And what's funny about that is a year prior, like last year, I had actually looked up the VIN of my old car thinking maybe I could find it somewhere, see if it's still registered, and it actually showed that it was registered last in 2012 and hadn't been since. So I sort of wrote it off as it probably got scrapped at some point between 2012 and now. But lo and behold, it was there on Facebook for sale, and it was priced at 500 bucks, but it also said parting out. So it kind of got me worried what I was missing from it. I didn't see any pictures of any of the JDM stuff that I had put on there. There was no engine. It was really just up on blocks, no suspension whatsoever. But hey, it was my first car, so I went ahead and sent the guy a message, and we got to chatting about it. And we came to a deal, and I went ahead and had somebody go down and pick it up. I didn't get any footage of picking the car up, but here it is at my house, and I'm going to show you, you know, kind of the condition it's in now. It's pretty rough. You can see here that there's a lot of body damage. There's paint that's missing. Really, the entire car is really rough condition. One thing about it though is it has the gray interior swap. It was a 94 DX cars did not have any power options. They were all crank windows, and it actually had that brown tan interior. Well, I ended up swapping that brown tan interior out from a parts car back in 2005 out of an LX. And so I swapped all that over with all the power windows and power locks. So now the frost white car has the gray interior. So I really like that about it. And that was another reason why I knew it was my car. It had all of that interior. So the car itself is going to need a total tear down and a total rebuild, even more so than this CRX here that I've been working on. This thing is intact and the body's in pretty good shape. As you can see here on the Civic, the lower subframe has somehow been separated a little bit. It's like the spare tire well was lifted up from something underneath. So that's going to need to be addressed. I may end up having to weld in a new spare tire well and then tack welding the subframe back on. Not sure yet. This is really going to be just an introduction video, because until I get done with this CRX here, I'm not really going to be working on that car at all, because I really need to focus my energy on one project at a time. Otherwise, some projects will end up not getting done. So I'm really going to focus my energy on this car here. I know I've been kind of slacking on getting this done. That quarter panel back there has been kind of intimidating me to get the welding done, but I will get it done here soon. So once I get the CRX done, I will jump into the sedan and really think about what I'm going to be doing with that car. Now, I do have a 95 sedan work car, as you've seen here on the channel. I could use that car as basically a donor car, but it's hard for me to tear down a nice running and driving car and move all the parts over to a pretty rough car, even though it is my first car. So that's a decision I'm going to have to make in the future. I'm not going to make it anytime soon, not until I sell off this CRX here. But it's going to be a lot of work, and I know I can get it done. I just need to take it one step at a time. It's going to be a lot of money, but I think it's going to be more of a long-term channel project, more so than these CRX rebuilds are. It's going to be more like the CRX over here, where I slowly upgrade things here and there on it, make it better day by day. But I'm pretty excited to have picked this up, and I'm excited to share it with you guys on the channel here, because that's something that I kind of dreamt about a year or two ago, but I finally got the chance to obtain the car, and I've got it here. So it's not going anywhere, but once the CRX is sold off, like I said, we're going to jump into the Civic. Now, I'm excited that the Civic actually came with the JDM Ferio spoiler. That spoiler alone is about 400 bucks. And it also came with this JDM Ferio garnishes that I put on the car way back when. They're really sun faded, so I'm really not sure how I'm going to restore those just yet. I may end up having to source some new ones. I'm not entirely sure. It does have the OEM EG sedan front lip on it. Those lips are a couple $100 bucks. You can actually still buy those new from ICB Motorsports. I believe that's where I got it back in the day, and that's actually where I got my new one on the work car as well. But that's just a bonus that I don't have to spend the money on, because I will end up probably painting it black or white to match the car. But the biggest challenge is really going to be finding all the parts to fit on that car. It's missing a lot of random stuff. The person I picked it up from was really just kind of disassembling everything. It didn't make a lot of sense to me to be disassembling like the subframe, the steering rack, completely pulling the drums apart, and it really didn't look like there was any rhyme or reason to it. or any good plan to get it all back together. It was just completely torn apart. The subframe in the car right now, as you can see here, it's not even bolted all the way up. It's barely in there. So one of the first things I'll do to the car is focusing on getting the suspension on the car, getting some new wheels and tires on there to make the thing actually rollable. Because right now it will not even roll the way it's sitting. The tires are completely shredded. So that's going to be one of the first things I do to it whenever we do get to the car. So I really just wanted to take a minute to talk about the car, show you some of the previous pictures of it and how I have it today, and just talk about maybe what I'll be doing to it. I really don't know at this point if I'm even going to rebuild it. I mean, that could be a decision I make that, hey, it's not worth it. It really just depends on how I'm feeling whenever I get this car done, and how much money I want to spend on the car, just things like that. This stuff is very time consuming. It takes a lot of work and a lot of patience and honestly a lot of money to get these things back to roadworthy and just something nice to look at. So I spent a lot of time and money on this car, and I have spent a lot of time and money on this car, and this one is far from looking good just yet. So I know the Civic is going to be even worse than this one, but I mean, I'm excited, and I hope you guys are excited as well to share that with me. I really just wanted to take a minute to talk about that and share it with you because of my excitement. I was going to kind of keep it under wraps for a long time, but I really couldn't do that, so I just wanted to share it. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Kind of a talking head video. I know it's not any work having been done, but sometimes that's how it is, and I'm just happy to share this with you guys. So we'll catch you in the next video, and I hope you join me.